The meeting point for the free walking tour through Jaffa is in front of this clock tower every day at 10 o'clock. You will recognize the guides easily in her red t-shirts. The tour is completely free. The only thing what they expect is a tip, which is roughly 10 to 12 euro per person.
My name is Yariv. I'm carrying a sign with me, Yariv. I'll say the third time, Yariv. Why am I saying it so many times? I'm very aware it's a difficult name and you cannot remember it by the end of the tour. It's such a difficult name. My mother-in-law couldn't remember it for 2 years. I was hoping it'll be 3 years, but she sort of caught on. Now, this ticket I'm carrying on myself is saying that I'm an official tour guide of Israel. It means that I went to a university for 2 years and I was tested by the state to be a tour guide. I have a master in computer science. This is way, way harder to get in this country. It also means that I know what I'm talking about, regardless of what my wife has to say about it, of course. We're going to be doing about 2.5 hours in Jaffa. It depends on how many questions you have and how fast you walk in. Now, this is the Sanaman's free tour. Why is it called a free tour? Is it because the guide is crazy? Well, yeah, I am. But it has nothing to do with it. It's basically working on tips. That means if you like the way I guided you, if you like my lame jokes, then hopefully at the end you will reward me for that. Let's start with the history of Jaffa, and we are starting right over here at the Stone Age. Except we have a little problem. While we have lots of remainders from the Stone Age in this country, in Jaffa, nothing. So we have to go a little bit higher in history to the Chalcolithic time. Chalcos means copper. It's the copper time. Once again, lots of remainders in this country from that period of time. And once again, inside of Jaffa, nothing. So the history of this city here starts at the Canaanites' time. The Canaanites are the one who built the city and Jerusalem. Yes, they built both cities. The history of this city goes back 4,000 years. One of the most ancient cities in the world. Come along at about the same time with Jericho. At about 1200 BC, the 12 tribes of Israel are coming from Egypt. It's in the Bible. I'm sure all of you here know the Bible by heart, right?
Yes.
Oh, really? You can't do Israel without learning the Bible? The 12 tribes of Israel came all over the country. One of them, the Dan tribe, settled right over here. That's the first time we can hear about Jaffa in the Bible. At about 1000 BC, King David is conquering Jerusalem, and then he wants to build the temple. He needs the cedars of Lebanon to build the temple, but God tells him, you are a man of war. Your hands are soiled with blood. You cannot build the temple. Your son Solomon will build the temple, but he can gather the material, can he? And therefore the cedars of Lebanon coming from Lebanon over here and being transported via the port of Jaffa. Second time we can hear about Jaffa in the Bible. At about 580 BC, we got the Babylonians come here. They destroy the country. They destroy Jerusalem. And they take all the Jewish people from here back to Babylonia. But 7 years later, the Persians are taking over Babylonia, and they're letting all the Jewish people back in here. So if you're really thinking about it, it's the Persians who made sure that this is a Jewish country. And who are the Persians today, by the way? Iranians. And what do they want to do to this country? Destroy it. You know what? At this point, they really should make up their mind. At about 330 BC, we got Hellenistic people here. Who are they? Well, they had a leader, a great leader. Who's that? Alexander the Great. And Alexander the Great is using Jaffa as a main port to get back and forth from Europe or from these places. Now, after that, we get a very weird name. It's called Hasmoneans. If you're not Jewish, you never heard the word. But maybe you heard the word Maccabees. Maybe you've been in an Israeli bar already and you drank a Maccabee beer. Really recommend it after the tour. When these people, the Hasmoneans, are able to throw away the Hellenistic people from Jerusalem and clear the temple, that is when Jewish people around the world are celebrating a holiday that's called Hanukkah. Sort of ended 3 weeks ago. Try and eat donuts in this country now. We only eat donuts during that holiday. By the way, what's the best donuts in America? Dunkin' Donuts. Lasted here 2 years in Bangkok. A more modern gate. This gate was broken in the wall. This you can see is a more modern gate. It's not a military type gate. It was broken in the walls after 1870. At that point, the Ottoman government is already feeling very comfortable. You don't need to be protected by an opposing army. Of course, they were wrong, because in 1917, the British are taking over the city and the entire country. Now, this street right here is a modern gate. That means that over here on the left, there's already a restaurant of some type, and on the right, there's some type of a hotel. This is servicing to all the people who are coming into this country, Jaffa being the port of entry to this country for many, many people at the time, no airports. But the interesting thing about this street is the name. The name of the street is showing up right there on left or on the right. It says Rivka and Shlomo Abulafia. Wait a minute, that's exactly what I told you before, right? The Muslim Arabic family. But I'm pretty sure most of you will agree with me that Rivka and Shlomo is not an Arabic name. Those are Jewish names. Yes, because the street name and the restaurant's named after that guy, Shlomo Abulafia. Shlomo Abulafia is a person who was born to a very rich family coming from Beirut in Lebanon. He's very educated. He knows Arabic. He knows French. And in 1887, he becomes to be the French and Arabic teacher of the all-girls school, that's important, the all-girls school in a brand new neighborhood, a Jewish neighborhood created right outside of Jaffa called Neve Tzedek. So he is now the only male in an all-girls school. And lo and behold, he's having an affair with one of the students. And she gets pregnant. That is a scandal. That was plastered on all of the newspapers of Israel at the time. All of them, all two of them. And of course, because of that, she has to get married. They have to get married. They had 3 more kids. Later on, they become very rich. They have servants. They have a big house. They have servants, and one of them is an Arabic servant. But after he has 4 kids, Mr. Shlomo Abulafia gets sick and he dies. Now, the widow is living with 4 orphans and the Arabic servant in the house. The community who knows her background says, that's not appropriate. You need to let him go. You can't live with you. So she has to fire the servant. But the servants, the Arabic guy says to her, how can you fire me? I was the servant of the Abulafia family. And she tells him, yeah, but look, I'm giving you a lot of compensation, lots of money. And he tells him, what's money? What about the honor? I was the servant of the Abulafia family. He says, you want the name? Go ahead, take the name. He takes the name and he opens that bakery, and therefore the most prominent Arabic Muslim family in Jaffa, it has a Jewish name to them. A name that was created by an artist named Ran Morin. He put it there in 1993. The tree is a representation of the Jewish people. How is it representing that? Well, in the year 135, the Jewish people were deported out of this country by the Romans, and then they are now all over the world without roots. Roots being, of course, this land right here. And because they uprooted, then the tree roots are not touching the ground. However, wherever there are Jewish people around the world, they're placing roots right in the community of where they are, and therefore you cannot see the roots. You'll see that it's inside of some kind of a vessel. Those represents the diaspora. Those are the countries the Jewish people are inside. Picture. Well, if you look to your left, you'll see there's a whole bunch of palm tree right over on your left in this garden. Where is that? That is basically, that doesn't work. That is basically right over here. This area right over here, this is where we are right now. We are sort of closer to this spot between these 2 houses. This is where we are right now. This entire beautiful city that you're seeing over there, entire big city, that is Tel Aviv. If you saw that prior to 1909, what you would see there is sand, nothing else, just sand. Everything was built here in 100 years. This big neighborhood that you're seeing over here is called Ajami. Some of you may actually pronounce this by the name of Ajami. Maybe you've seen a few years ago a movie that almost won the Oscar called Ajami. This is a crime neighborhood. It's an old neighborhood. Yeah, after the state it became to be a crime neighborhood. It was about 100% Muslims and 100% Arabs. However, there was a law change a few years ago in Israel that says you are not allowed to build anything 300 meters or 300 yards from the shoreline, from the actual water. And therefore, suddenly, all the houses that are near the water are becoming expensive because you're not allowed to build, but you're allowed to take an older building and you're allowed to renovate it and make it larger. And suddenly these houses that could be a few $100,000 are now being renovated, and they're about $1 million each. Over here, this building, this huge building here, this is Hangar Number 1. We are going to end our tour over there in Hangar Number 1, where you're going to find bathrooms, coffee, restaurants, and so on. This is Number 2 and Number 3. They're never renovated, and they're still very dilapidated and dangerous to go in. This is the port of Jaffa, right over here. This is the port that was used for shipment for 4,000 years now. However, big boats never docked inside of Jaffa, never. The reason is, if you're looking around it, you'll see a whole bunch of foam. Those are rocks. There's a whole bunch of rocks, and the dark area in the water, those are sand barges. You cannot get near the port. So big boats always docked somewhere here in the water, and with an anchor, and then these little boats would come back and forth from the shore to the boat, transferring people and merchandise. In the old time, it used to be that it cost you such and such amount of money to go from Europe to Jaffa, to the shores of Jaffa. Now, one person over here with a boat will come over and will want to take you to the shore. And he will tell you it is costing you about the same as it cost you to get from Europe to the shore. You don't want to pay? That's okay. Go ahead, swim. What do we care? All right. We have the Wishing Bridge behind us. The Wishing Bridge. This bridge is for good luck. This bridge, the legend behind it, is that if you walk on the bridge, and this is called the Zodiac Bridge actually, if you walk on the bridge and you hold the metal ring that is carrying your sign, your zodiac sign, and you make a wish towards the sea, then your wish will come true. You'll have luck going on the bridge. Now this lucky bridge was hit by a truck 2 years ago. And therefore they are afraid it'll collapse and they closed it. You cannot go over it. Peter's Church. This church was created in the 1600s. And I know you're going to look at me, it's like, wait a minute, this looks brand new. Why do you mean it's 400 years old? Okay, so yes, it was built in the 1600s on top of a Crusader fort. But right behind me, they were renovated. It was renovated at the late 20th century, and that's why it looks pretty new. But yes, it is more than 400 years old. They're very inviting. You see the door behind me is open, and you are very welcome to go and visit the place. The church is managed by the Franciscans. Who are the Franciscans? Well, if you look right above the door, there's a very big green cross there. The green cross has 4 crosses all the way around it. That is the Franciscan cross or the Jerusalem cross. The idea with that is the big cross is symbolizing Jerusalem is in the middle of the world, and those around are the 4 corners of the earth. The Franciscans are named after Franciscus of Assisi. He's a saint from Italy. He suffered from the wounds in his hand throughout his life. He suffered from bleeding through his hand. It's called stigmata. Stigmata wounds. He used to bleed from his palm. And if you look above the cross, you'll see there are 2 hands crossing. The one hand is the hand of Jesus. The bleeding is, of course, from the nail he suffered over the cross, while the other hand is the hand of Franciscus of Assisi. The Franciscans are the one who took over this country, or was given the authority over this country by the Pope over the Terra Santa, the Holy Land, after the Crusaders left. they made sure to purchase most of the Christian holy places in this country, and therefore as you go around the country to Christian sites, you will see that particular cross all over the country. They're the one who control most of them and maintain them very, very nicely. It's not in front of you. Down the steps, there's a very big metal door, and there's a very big yellow sign on it. If you could read the sign, you will say there, you're not allowed entry. This is the house of Simon the Tanner. Simon the Tanner. Well, a tanner is not a word we use lately, but the idea of a tanner is a person whose job is to take the hide of the animal, the skin of the animal, get it through processes and making leather out of it, so you'll be able to make coats and shoes or whatever other product you are making out of leather. Now, this is then the house of Simon the Tanner. You can read about him in the New Testament. Simon the Tanner was living over here, and in his house there was a young lady by the name of Tabitha. Tabitha at some point got sick and she died. Simon knows that Peter is somewhere over here. Peter is known to be the one who's taken the movement after the rising to the sky or the death of Jesus. He knows that Jesus was able to bring back to life people. And he's hoping that maybe Peter now is able to do the same thing. So he knows Peter is somewhere around here. They invite Peter over to bring Tabitha back to life. And yes, Peter is able to bring Tabitha back to life over here. Now apparently bringing somebody to life is very tiring. And therefore now Peter is going to sleep and need dreams. And in his dream there is an angel who is bringing him a tray full of food. None of them is kosher. Now Peter is Jewish. He eats only kosher food. Jesus was Jewish. There's no Christianity. It didn't exist at the time. So Peter is very, very weird. We're very worried about it and tells the angel, why would you give me a tray full of non-kosher foods or animals? I only eat kosher. And the angel is telling him, who are you to say that something is not good to eat if God created that creature? Peter is very, very confused. He's baffling about the whole affair. But before he understands what's going on, he wakes up. And before he gets to think about it, there's a knock on the door. A messenger is coming from Caesarea. A messenger was sent by Cornelius. Cornelius is a centurion. That means he's a commander of 100 Roman soldiers. He's sending a messenger to bring Peter to Caesarea to teach him about the teaching of Jesus. Well, Peter is telling him, I can go with you, but I can't tell him about the teaching of Jesus. That is meant only for Jewish people. But he goes anyhow. And right then, when he's standing in front of Cornelius, he understands the meaning of the dream. It is really not about the food. It's really about the fact that now you can teach the teaching of Jesus to non-Jewish people. In this house is where Judaism and Christianity actually separated. Now there's a sign on the house, as I said, you cannot go in there. Because at some point, the church that existed there during the Byzantine era, and we know there was a church, because if you look at the left and right of the door, there are big marble squares. Those are the bases for the hinges of the doors of the church. At some point during the Muslim era, this church became to be a mosque. There is a mosque inside the house. And therefore there's a dispute between Islam and Christianity over this house. The Israeli government, who is very aware of the dispute, decided that tourists cannot go in there. There's a family live there. It's an Armenian family called the Zecharian family. They live there. It's their house. They can bring their close friends there, but they are not allowed to bring any tourists in. And therefore this house that I'm sure many, many Christians in the world would love to go and visit is staying closed, and you cannot go and visit there.
After the tour you should spend a couple of hours at the harbor of Jaffa, as mentioned during the tour. If you live close to Jaffa in your hotel, you should come as well in the evening and enjoy a couple of drinks here, the sunset, and so on.